My name is Rachel, and telling this story feels somewhat awkward, but I feel the need to share what happened. It's a deeply personal experience that I couldn't discuss with anyone in my life, but perhaps sharing this story will help me let it go. Last summer, my brother and his wife decided to take a short weekend trip and asked me to watch over my nephew, Ethan, for a few days. Ethan, who is only 18, is a very intelligent and enjoyable child, so spending time with him is typically a lot of fun. Without hesitation, I agreed to help. The first day passed by without incident. Ethan and I watched movies, played games, and shared plenty of laughs. But I had no idea that the following day would bring one of the most mortifying moments of my life. That morning, Ethan told me he wanted to go out. I assumed he was meeting up with his friends, and I was relieved to have some quiet time for myself. Sometimes you just need a little space, right? As soon as Ethan left, I went to my bedroom to unwind. I scrolled through social media for a while and then decided to watch something to improve my mood. Everything seemed normal. It didn't even cross my mind that Ethan might return early. But then, suddenly, the door swung open. The shock I felt was indescribable. Ethan had caught me at an entirely unexpected moment. "Rachel, I realized I forgot my keys, so I came back," he said. But the stunned look in his eyes said much more than his words. For a few seconds, there was an awkward silence in the room. I wished the ground would open up and swallow me whole. "Ethan, why didn't you knock first?" I asked, trying to salvage the situation. Ethan just looked at me and, with a bashful expression, replied, "I'm sorry, Rachel, but I think I should stay here now." As I tried to make sense of what was going on, I noticed Ethan seemed to be hiding something. "Ethan, tell me the truth," I said, and at that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about that single embarrassing moment. It was something more. There was an odd expression in Ethan's eyes. Was it embarrassment or something else? I couldn't quite figure it out. "What do you mean you need to stay? Can you explain?" I asked, my voice trembling. Ethan took a deep breath. "This may sound strange, Rachel, but this morning, while I was talking to my friends, I heard something about you." I was stunned. "About me? What did you hear?" "Yes, I think there's been some sort of misunderstanding. Someone said they saw a video of you," he said, staring at the floor. My heart began to race. "What video? What are you talking about, Ethan?" Ethan's face grew even redder. "I don't know, Rachel. My friends just mentioned something. I don't know who recorded it or how, but it bothered me so much that I came back home. I didn't want to see you like this." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. What video? What misunderstanding? At that moment, everything felt so unclear. I was both furious and concerned about Ethan. If what he was saying was true, this could turn into a serious issue for me. "Ethan, if you're hiding something, you need to tell me now. This could cause trouble for both of us." "Tell me exactly what you saw and heard," I said firmly. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then pulled out his phone and showed me a video. But instead of playing it, he paused. "Maybe it's better if you don't see this. But Rachel, someone might have recorded you. It could be someone trying to hurt you," he said. That was when I realized the situation was bigger than I had imagined. If someone had truly invaded my privacy and spread the video the way Ethan described, things could spiral out of control quickly. I sat down to collect myself. "Ethan, you need to tell me everything right now. We have to sort this out together." Ethan nodded. "Okay, Rachel, but we're not handling this on our own. We need to involve the police too." My heart started pounding faster. Now, I wasn't just worried about myself. I was worried about Ethan too. If we didn't speak to the right people, this could destroy both our lives. But deep down, I had a feeling there was an even more complicated story behind all of this. At that moment, Ethan and I just stared at each other. The silence between us made the weight of the situation feel even heavier. "All right," I said in a calm voice. "We'll figure this out together. But for now, don't tell anyone. My brother, no one. This needs to stay between us, okay?" Ethan nodded. "I trust you, Rachel. I just don't want anyone to hurt you." The sincerity in his voice struck me. Ethan was still just a kid, but in that moment, the maturity he showed made me see a different side of him. From that day forward, something shifted between Ethan and me. It was as if what had happened had brought us closer in an unexpected way. When my brother and his wife returned, we tried to act like everything was normal, But every time Ethan and I locked eyes, I could feel that silent connection still lingering. Over time, Ethan began reaching out to me more often. He'd send messages like, "Rachel, if something's wrong, please tell me." At first, I thought his protective attitude was just a response to what we had been through. But as the days passed, I began to feel something different. A warmth I couldn't fully explain. Was Ethan's concern for me more than just innocent worry? And more importantly, was I beginning to feel something for him too? One evening, my husband Thomas was away on business, and I was home alone when another message from Ethan appeared on my phone. "I need your help, Rachel. Can I come over?" I hesitated at first, but couldn't bring myself to say no. "Come over," I texted back. When Ethan walked in, there was a familiar expression of concern on his face. "Rachel, I have to tell you something," he said. "I can't stop thinking about what happened that day." I could hear the tremor in his voice. Ethan wasn't trying to hide anything. He just needed to get it off his chest. "Ethan, we need to move past this," I said, though even I didn't believe my own words. Ethan sat down and leaned in closer. "Rachel, you're such a special person. After everything I've realized, I feel secure when I'm with you. I require your presence." His words struck me like the ground being ripped away beneath me. I was at a loss for words, but in that instant, I came to an understanding. The level of closeness Ethan was offering was something I hadn't experienced in years, not even during my time with Thomas. Ethan's candor and surprising maturity, despite his young age, were drawing me toward him. As I looked at Ethan, I felt like I was battling with myself. My relationship with Thomas had become tedious and lifeless. His constant preoccupation with work made me feel like a stranger in my own home. But Ethan, in just a few weeks, seemed to understand me in ways Thomas never had. But what was the right course of action? Were these emotions just a product of a challenging moment? Or was there something genuine between us? That night, the conversation I had with Ethan lingered in my mind. Everything he said, the feelings, all of it, his openness and honesty confronted me with something I hadn't felt in a long time, the sensation of being truly understood. My marriage to Thomas had turned into a routine. The same greetings in the mornings, the same quiet dinners in the evenings. But when I spoke with Ethan, I felt revitalized. Yet, I knew this wasn't right. Ethan was my nephew, and the age gap between us was considerable. But this bond seemed to be forming beyond my control. As the days went on, Ethan and I began communicating more often. Texts, brief visits. Each time he'd begin with, "I was just checking in on you," but our talks always delved deeper. When I spoke to him, I could share everything I couldn't tell Thomas. Whatever was missing in my marriage seemed to be filled by Ethan's presence. One evening, Thomas told me he'd be working late. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was from Ethan. "Rachel, can I see you? We need to talk." This time, I didn't hesitate. "Sure, come over," I replied. When Ethan arrived, he wore a serious expression. "Rachel," he said, "I know this is unusual, but I had stopped thinking about talking to you, being with you. It makes me feel different." I looked at him, and before I could respond, I paused for a moment. "Ethan," I said softly, "I feel the same way, but it's not right. Thomas is my husband, and you're my nephew. We have to set these feelings aside." Ethan took a step closer. "But why? Thomas isn't making you happy. I can see it in your eyes. You deserve to be with someone who values you." His words cut through me. Was he right? Had my anger and disappointment with Thomas created a wall that made my connection with Ethan grow stronger? "Ethan, we can't do this," I said, my voice trembling. "What we're feeling is just temporary confusion. I care about you deeply, but if we go down this path, we'll both get hurt." Ethan took a deep breath. "You're right," he said finally, "but I needed to tell you this. No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you. Know that someone cares about you." After Ethan left that night, I spent a long time reflecting. I needed to figure out how to fill the void in my marriage with Thomas and how to establish boundaries with my relationship with Ethan. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. One weekend, Thomas took the day off from work. We both realized we hadn't spent much time together lately, so we arranged a dinner. But no matter how hard we tried, the gap between us couldn't be bridged. During the meal, we stuck to surface-level topics, avoiding anything deeper. Thomas, as usual, was absorbed in his phone, checking work emails. On the way home, a heavy silence filled the car. My chest tightened, and an overwhelming emptiness began to rise within me. I turned to Thomas and said, "Can you pull over? I need some fresh air." He nodded and stopped the car at the side of the road. After stepping out of the car, I walked a few steps, trying to breathe. Thomas remained in the car, engrossed in his phone, not saying a word. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. "Rachel, are you okay? I've been thinking about you." My hand shook as I replied, "I'm fine, but I don't think I can handle this anymore. I can't bear this emptiness." The reply came almost immediately. "I'm here. I'm coming to you." Ethan's message made my heart race. Within 2 minutes, he was there. He saw Thomas in the car but walked straight toward me without hesitation. "Rachel, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Thomas glanced up from his phone and looked at Ethan. "Why are you here, Ethan?" "This was a family dinner," he said coldly. But Ethan responded with resolve, "Maybe Rachel needs a little more than that." At that moment, I reached my breaking point. I had to choose between Thomas's continuous indifference and Ethan's tenderness toward me. I turned to Thomas and knew I couldn't remain silent any longer. "Do you realize how much you ignore me, Thomas? You sit next to me, but it's as if you don't even see me." Thomas, surprised, said, "Rachel, this isn't the right time to discuss this." But his words didn't stop me. "It may not be the right time or place, but this has been going on for years, and I can't carry it any longer," I said, my eyes brimming with tears. Ethan stood silently beside me, but the determination in his eyes had a profound impact on me. "Rachel, if you want to leave, I'll take you," he said softly. Thomas didn't say anything. He just went back to his phone, typing a message. This was a turning point. I walked over to Ethan and said, "Let's go." As we got into the car, I was filled with a mix of emotions. Ethan took the wheel and drove silently. A few minutes later, he stopped, turned to me, and asked, "Rachel, do you think we're doing the right thing?" I lowered my head, but when I looked at him, the words came out. "I don't know, Ethan, but I needed to change something." Ethan smiled faintly and gently placed his hand on my shoulder. "Then we're starting here." In that moment, I knew my life would never be the same again.